we of course we accept their resignation. It was something that we have been calling for, but in addition to that, we want their pensions.
The national uprising against racism continues. The latest site, Rochester, New York, where a video has recently emerged of the police killing of Daniel Prude, a 41-year-old black man, back on March 30th. Following 5 months without any progress in the investigation, Prude's family and organizers with Free the People Rock held a press conference on September 2nd. His family released body camera footage from police, which they got hold of through a public records request. The disturbing video shows Prude handcuffed and naked on the street on a cold, snowy night. The police put a spit hood over his entire head, and after he tries to get up, the officers push Prude's face into the pavement for 2 minutes. He was resuscitated but died a week later. Prude had been hospitalized by his family for evaluation after acting erratically, and he was released within hours. But later that night, his brother Joe reported that Prude sprinted out of the house barely dressed. Joe called the police for help, and in a harrowing situation we've seen play out time and time again, instead of helping Prude in the midst of a clear mental health crisis, police killed him. The Black community of Rochester is no stranger to police brutality and systemic racism. This city is a historic site of uprisings against racist policing, redlining, and job discrimination in the 1960s and 70s. A new generation has revived this tradition, hitting the streets to make their voices heard every night for the past week, despite brutality from the RPD. The actions of the Rochester police have prompted criticism from the city's mayor herself. On Monday, Mayor Lovely Warren called out how the department handled Daniel Prude's death and stated that the RPD, quote, views everything through the eyes of the badge. She revealed that she had fired Police Chief LaRon Singletary 2 weeks before he announced his retirement. Singletary said that the uprising was, quote, an attempt to destroy my character and integrity. He was joined by the rest of the top command staff, which announced their retirement while others moved to lower-ranking positions. I'm happy to speak with Stevie Vargas, organizer with Free the People Rock and Citizen Action of New York. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Our pleasure. So can you talk about some of the issues of racism and racist policing in Rochester before the current uprising?
Well, in Rochester, we've always had an issue with racist policing in our community. Rochester has a pretty deep history when it comes to addressing racism. We are the home of Frederick Douglass. We have a deep history with the Underground Railroad. We have a deep history in trying to address redlining and segregation and police brutality. And when news broke about Daniel Prude in our own community, we took it extremely hard, and it was like a powder keg of emotions that burst out because we have been out in these streets fighting for Black lives and honoring and acknowledging the lives lost to police brutality. And we had no idea that we lost one of our own. And Daniel Prude was actually murdered 2 months before George Floyd. And it was hidden from us, from our elected officials. They have said that they were barred from speaking about it, and they pointed out the laws that they have pointed to don't say anything about them having to keep this information from the public.
Now, what do you make of the news of the police chief and the entire command staff of the Rochester PD resigning?
We of course we accept their resignation. It was something that we have been calling for, but in addition to that, we want their pensions. So what they did was either they retired or they were demoted. So not all of them resigned. So it's a way for them to kind of save face and not have any accountability for their actions. So we accept them stepping down and leaving, but we also want their pensions, and we're asking that they give their pensions back to the family that they harmed.
And can you describe how the police have reacted to this movement?
Yes. So it was honestly, it felt like we were in the middle of a war zone, and it was quite traumatic to be in that, because we've made it very clear what the purpose of our protests were and what our goals were and what we aim to do. We always plan to take to the streets to march, and we always have teach-ins because it's always important for us to talk to the community, have a dialogue with the community in front of the institutions that have harmed us. What the cops have done is they've usually blocked us from getting to our destination. And then we are met with tear gas, pepper bullets, sonic weapons, flashbangs they have used to disorient us. You name it, canines, everything. And they don't care that there's cameras capturing them. That also shows that there has always been a lack of accountability for our Rochester Police Department. They have always been told that this is the correct way to react to a group of people who are exercising their constitutional right to protest. They have always been told that it is okay to act in that way and to behave that way and to use that amount of force, and they have never been held accountable to it. A few years ago, there was a woman out in Canandaigua, which is not too far outside of Rochester, who was shot and killed in her own home when family called the cops to do a wellness check. So this is something that has happened. It's not new. It's not new in our community, and it's not new across the nation. So we are calling for legislation that would ban cops from answering mental health calls, as well as defunding the police, defunding the DA. Free them all is another demand that we're making. So everyone who has been arrested for protesting to be released from jail and have those charges dropped. And it's important to take up space in our own community because the police force themselves have tried to insinuate that this is all coming from outsiders and outside agitators, when the only outside agitators is the police.